What up, people? Welcome to another episode of the BYLU Campaign podcast. Here today with your hosts, Dan and Nate, and we have another one after, I think, a month. Well, we got another one that we got to drop, so yeah, that's me though. Shouts out to me for holding that one up. But yeah, what's up, man? What's going on, bro? How are you? How you been? This man got the fresh cut.
Yes, I do.
Welcome back to civilization.
I feel great. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty blessed. Shout out to Dan for keeping one in the tank.
Yeah, one in the chamber.
Yep. I don't know what that's about, but
I mean, you always got to keep one in the cut that you're ready to like let go whenever, It's like a little like a little secret weapon.
okay.
I mean, what's the point of having a stash if there's nothing in it?
Anyways, how are you?
I'm doing well.
How's life?
Life is going pretty good. Yeah.
What do you say if you had to say a positive, a high about right now and a low about right now?
A low outside. Outside it's just looking very hopeless. Not for me. Like, I'm not feeling hopeless, but I would say the low is like the hopelessness that's being pushed at scale outside. That bothers me a lot. And just the reality is what's happening. Because like I tell you, like every other day, like, you know what I'm saying? I think everybody is making it look good, but a lot of people are getting their ass spanked, and no one's really being honest about like what they're really going through. And that's fine. You don't gotta put your stuff on Front Street, but I think when you so caught up in like fabricating and making it look good, you just tricking yourself and hurting yourself. You feel me? Instead of just like being like, like, damn, like this is messed up. This is what I'm going through. Like, what can I do to fix it after, you know what I'm saying? You can take a little time and feel sorry for yourself, but eventually you got to tap into some solutions, right?
For sure.
So that the good, you know what I'm saying? I think the basics for real at this time really keep you clean. Like, you got a roof over your head. You got some type of income, or you got like a little cushion that could take care of you or hold you over. And you healthy. I think just having those things right now is worth gold, cuz. You feel me?
For sure.
How about yourself?
I'm just gonna second whatever you said.
Okay, that was a lazy way out, but
Thank
okay. You. Okay. All right. So today we're gonna be discussing blind spots. We recently released an article entitled "Blind Spots." It was a pretty decent article, short read. As you can tell, things have been getting shorter. We're trying to condense how much time we occupy right now and space we occupy for, people who tap in with us, our audience, supporters, friends and family, loved ones, all that. It just makes more sense right now. I think attention spans are pretty short. So much going on. So, blind spots. I'm going to hand it over to you, Nate. Give us an overview of what blind spots are and your personal opinion on them.
I mean, for me, I would say the ultimate goal for this article was really just to share with people that as your vision increases, or as if you have a big vision, if you're a person who consider yourself a visionary, a dreamer, you have all these big goals and ambitions, just to realize that what comes with those goals, ambitions, and visions that we sometimes have, and that's blind spots. Because, just from my experience and what I'm seeing in life, and just when you look at things in life, the more vision you have, the more blind spots, and that was really my entire message was for the people, because I feel like sometimes when you have these great ideas, or when you believe you have these great ideas, sometimes your ego gets in the way, and you get and your not judgment, but sometimes you become very unaware of those blind spots. And even when people present those blind spots to you, because you have the vision, you're like, nah. You overlook those blind spots and see them as not important or invalid. So, I mean, one of the sayings, I think it has to go, a small hole can sink a ship, a great ship.
Yeah.
I can't remember how the saying goes, but
Yeah.
something like that. But I think if I had to provide a visual, one of the visuals for this article, that's it. Like a tiny hole can sink a great ship. So I think as leaders, visionaries, bosses, whatever you consider yourself, just to be very mindful of that in your daily endeavors and all that. So yeah.
You totally ignored what I had asked you, but
What do you ask me?
thank you. It's all good, bruh. Don't even trip. But yeah, so blind spots. Because I had initially asked, like, what would you define it as more so? But you really gave us like an overview of the topic of blind spots. So thank you. We appreciate you for that. We gonna snap. Salute. But yeah, so blind spots, right? So it's defined as, at least in the dictionary terms, a blind spot is a subject about which you're ignorant or prejudiced and fail to exercise good judgment. The second one is more so like blind spots and related to driving. Things that are not in your rearview mirror or side mirrors that are outside of your peripheral.
For sure.
It's kind of crazy, right? Because I'm just when you were speaking on it on blind spots, I was like, man, I recently drove somebody else's car. I swapped cars recently, just for like a quick momentarily type of thing. So I used someone else's car, and that so I'm driving. I had their car for like an hour. We switched cars for like an hour. So I'm driving, and like within like the first 2 minutes, I'm like, man, this person must be struggling when they drive. When I hop in someone's car, I try not to like adjust it to myself. I try to like respect that. So it's like, return it with like a full tank, and saying in terms of positioning this and how they had things, try and keep it the same, right? Because with me personally, I know how long and how meticulous I am with like setting up my mirrors and my seat position and everything. So if you come in, you move it an inch, I know. I'm like, hey, who touched this?
Yeah.
Right. So I tried to keep everything like original to the original driver. And I'm just driving and I'm like, I couldn't see nothing because like the side mirrors, nothing. I had to like stretch my neck to see even in the rear view. I'm driving. I'm like, man, this person must be a terrible driver, or they must struggle when they drive. Because to see in the side view mirror, the way they had positioned it, I had to like lean over, bro. Like I couldn't just be like in my natural position as I'm driving. I gotta like lean my head and like do all this extra, and it was bad. And then I'm just sitting down. I'm like, man, I wonder if they could see in their blind spots when they're driving, right? Because I got to do the whole
head turn.
Yeah, the head turns to make sure there's nothing in the blind spot, right? I'm just like, man, like you know what I'm saying, like even just speaking to what you're saying, like everyone sees it differently, right? Because the way that I would see the blind spots is different than like what they're able to see from where they are positioned in their view. So I think just sharing that was kind of cool.
Nah, it's real, bro. I think that's something I try to do when I take people's car. I try my best not to like switch up, especially the mirrors.
Yeah.
Like I may mess with your seat at most because some people, you know what I'm saying, the height difference is like, it's hard not to.
Drastic.
So, but I try not to mess with people's mirrors as much as possible because it is annoying. It's just like you want to hop in your car and just take off. You don't want to hop back in your car after someone used it and be sitting there readjusting. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is.
Sounds like. So, you talk about DISC, DISC, a DISC index assessment. Can you tell us a little bit about that, my brother?
Yeah, so in summary, it's like a personality assessment. Where you kind of just asks a bunch of questions, and it provides, I guess, a response or whatever, based on, your responses. So the 4 areas is D, I, S, and C. I think I can't remember what each one stands for. But for each one, they put you on a spectrum for the 4 different areas. But anyways, that's beside the point. But I had decided to take the test. Took the test, and kind of it's like a 10 or 15 page response that they give you. It's pretty in depth.
Yeah.
In terms of like providing you insight in terms of like what the disc is about. And then an overview like on your personality trait, what that means, what are some things that you could potentially work on, how to best communicate with people, how people should communicate with you, all types. Is very robust, I would say. And I kind of skimmed through it. I was like, man, this is a lot. I kind of threw it to the side for real. But, I eventually picked it back up and started doing a little bit more digging into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I had the same reaction when I received my results. 'Cause I took it after you told me about it. I'm like, all right, let me see what it's about. And it's free too. So I was like, you know what? I ain't paying nothing. I ain't losing nothing.
For sure.
Because most joints that you have an extensive, fully like fleshed out result, you usually have to pay for those.
For sure.
You feel me? It'll be like $99 value. I'm like, man, I know myself. I ain't about to give you no bread for you to tell me about me.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I felt when I went to therapy. I had to get over that though. I realized I ghosted my therapist, but that's for another conversation. But yeah, cause and I'm like, all right, let me see what it's about. And it was so much information, it was overwhelming a bit, to tell you the truth, initially. I'm like, man, like there's truth in this, right? I won't knock it, there's truth. But you also have to have like the patience to sit down and go through it. But I think it's I would encourage people to take it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should like link it, because I know we ain't link it in the article, but we should probably link it somewhere so people could, take their own and take advantage of that. Yeah, because I think it's a really good assessment. So you took that assessment and you learned some things about yourself, right? They seem to be like personal. There was a theme that stood out. Were you surprised by the theme that you found?
So the thing is, like, I've had to read my assessment. I probably read it like more than 10, 15 times. Just like going through it. Probably maybe even up to 20. Just like going through it because...
You're obsessed, cuz. You're obsessed.
Nah, because the thing is, sometimes you can, like, let's say you read a book, right?
Yeah.
At 10 years old.
For sure.
And then you read a book at 20 years old.
Oh yeah, it's totally different experience.
Yeah, it's a different experience because but the book didn't change. It's just that you changed, right?
Yeah, your understanding changed.
Right. So I think that's kind of how my experience has been with the disc, right? So like the first time I had finally went through it, like I was like, okay, this is a lot of truth to it, blah, blah, blah. But then I think the next time I hit it, when I went through it, the 2 things that really stuck out to me were the ones I mentioned in the article were like you prefer to focus on the big picture and the future, not the details of the past. You can miss small but important details because you're moving too fast or focus too much on the big picture. And I read that joint and it hit me, right? Because my mom had made a comment about it. Something like related to that, like maybe a couple weeks ago. So I went and showed her to her, right? And like she just started laughing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like she was just smiling, just like, wow, like, this thing got you right.
Sheesh.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was one of the big takeaways for me. That piece of overlooking small important things. Because to me, sometimes I see small as as not important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I'm trying to take. Like even with like simple things like making your bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like just realizing like, okay, Nathan, like, yeah, who cares if you make your bed or not? But like, nah, like that's important, right?
Mm.
Just being very disciplined, even with the small things, and taking even small things seriously is something I'm trying to be a lot more deliberate and diligent with. You
You
know what
know
I'm
what's
saying?
funny?
Yeah.
You the same person for years that always says, the way you do small things is how you do big things. You've been telling me that for years, cuz whenever I tried to take the easy way out, you like, yeah, bruh, but you always gotta remember, man, the way people do like the small things it carries over to bigger things in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you out here skipping the small things, man.
Nah, but
You
this
want
is
making
the
your bed up, Nate?
but this is the thing,
Just
like,
straight up as with you, bruh.
nah, it's good. But that's actually it's a good point that you brought that up. So for me, like when if I would say a statement like that, right?
Yeah.
So it would be like, okay, how do I treat $1 today is going to affect how I treat $100 when I have $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So things that I view are important, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's at a small scale, I'm still going to treat it as important.
Okay.
But things that I don't see as important,
Mm-hmm.
that I view as small
Yeah.
or unimportant, I'm going to treat it like it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to like, that's not important.
Okay.
So I think for me, it wasn't necessarily, it was more about shifting my mind in terms of like what's important.
Okay.
And realizing that like, you know, it's bigger than kind of what I had perceived.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I take it. All right, cool. So let's move on to the Tonka trucks. We got the 18 wheelers that we about to let come in.
For
We're
sure.
probably gonna add like a sound effect or something. This part that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, the 18 wheelers, right? And that's so the 18 wheeler. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I got from it is an 18 wheeler is like the super big, grandiose, visionary image, like I'm about to build something to change the world, which I think is like now that I've got older, I don't agree with that like that terminology or approach any longer.
What?
Recently, like that whole like I'm gonna change the world type of thing. That's
Why?
where you said why?
Just like a
Oh
quick.
man, I was hoping I could just say it and keep it moving, but
just a quick.
nah.
Yeah.
I think it puts too much pressure on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe when you have that great aspiration, and it's a great aspiration,
Mm-hmm.
but once you set that to be your North Star and you don't reach it, nothing will ever feel enough.
For sure.
Nothing you do will feel like you've done enough. No accomplishment will satisfy you. It creates a almost unattainable bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just doesn't add to your overall life satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more realistic to start small things and just, tackle things that you can tackle immediately and let those things, if they do happen, to create a ripple effect and end up saving the world or changing the world or whatever type of influence you want to have on a global impact scale. If that ends up happening, I think that's cool. But to start off and just making that your North Star, you're going to feel for the longest like you're chasing something that's unattainable. Kind of like you've been sold.
But it's not attainable.
It's not attainable?
No.
What do you mean? To change the world?
Because I think it's a good point.
I said something that's unattainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not, like, you can't, because the thing with that, like, and I agree with your point, you can't, that's not measurable. You can't measure, have I changed the world? Like, it's something it's either you did or you didn't.
Yeah.
There's no, like, steps that you can really say, like, okay, first I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this, right? So it's like, it's better to find a goal that's attainable or that has somewhat of a process,
something
measurable that you can measure in the interim. And then when you get to whatever goal you have, it's like, okay, it changed the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think you set out to I don't think anyone should set out to change the world. I think you should set out to do something that could change the world.
Yeah, or just to provide some value, because a lot of great things just came out of even personal need. Like a lot of things that I would have ideas of creating or attempted to create was like, were selfish, to be honest. A good amount of them were selfish, where it's like, you know what, I wish this exists. It doesn't exist. Let me see if I can make it exist, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember I had met this guy one time, I think his name was Jamal. We had a conversation and we were talking about like some issues and how we could probably solve them using tech and stuff, right? He was like way older than me. He was like a developer, a software engineer, way older than me. I met him through like one of my mentors one time, and I brought up like a certain issue that I always thought was interesting and I wouldn't mind tackling. And he made the comment. He said, "If not you, then who?" You feel me? Like he's just like, you know, like if. Like, you know what I'm saying? If someone has to take care of it, why not it be you to handle that, right? You clearly have the idea. You got the brain power to do it. Why not try your hand and see? You know, instead of just being like, man, I hope one day somebody, or I wish, right? It's like things that are realistic, because you can end up doing something that saves your immediate need in your immediate circle or your life or whatever. And that, you know what I'm saying, somebody else comes across that, finds a way to use it to help themselves, and next thing you know, you done changed the world. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just feel like it's just, you're setting yourself up for failure. Not that you're gonna fail, but you're always gonna feel like you're failing. Yeah. You'll never feel satisfied. Yeah. Like me, like I live with never feeling satisfied. And I have my own reasons why, right? But at least in terms of things that I'm chasing, they're measurable. Where I could, even though I'll probably get a lot of them, I won't feel satisfied, because that's just me as a person. At least I know I could check them off, right? Yeah. Like when you put like, let's say, the world, it's hard to kind of check that off. Because
for sure,
it gets hard. But yeah, 18-wheelers. So the 18-wheelers are the big visionaries, right? The people who like are like, we're gonna do this and it's gonna do that and it's gonna do that. But the thing about being a big 18-wheeler visionary is the larger you get, the larger your vision gets, the larger your role gets, whatever that is, the larger blink gets, the more blind spots that creates, and the more patience is necessary when it comes to making decisions, to, you know what I'm saying, leading the ship, leading the car, the boat, whatever it is. So I'm going to have you take over and talk about your personal 18-wheeler that you spoke on, and just 18-wheelers in general, like things that I could apply to my life, you feel me, as I become, you know, super big visionary man. What's so funny?
Because you just like, that was just like super big visionary. I mean, more so the expression, like people not seeing your
my pose right now. Hey, give me a flick real quick. We need this. We use this as like the album cover. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I just think, as Danny alluded to, just the bigger the vision, the more blind spots, and the more patient you have to be, right? And the more you have to be willing to listen and hear people, right? So yeah,
to listen and hear people. But the hard part about listening and hearing people, because the term visionary by itself, it sounds beautiful. Like, just imagine like someone's like introducing you to give a speech, and they're just like, coming up next, we have Nate. The
Vision.
visionary of the year. Like that sounds sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that man doing something,
Mm-hmm.
right? It sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've adopted that idea, like, you know what, I'm a visionary, like
Mm-hmm.
I see the vision. Sometimes it comes with like a little bit of arrogance where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, and no one else can see my vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes with like ignorance where you're like, well, F your opinion because you clearly can't see
Yeah.
my vision and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what you're talking about. Who are you to give me advice? You're
Mm-hmm.
not big visionary. I see
Yeah.
how you living. You're not visionary.
Yeah.
You don't got no vision. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So it gets harder the bigger your vision gets also. That's why I like that you included patience because you have to be willing to sit down and think. You have to be willing to, dot your I's, cross your T's before you make moves. For example, like the car, the super big CDL commercial trucks, if they're turning and they make a mistake, they don't see a car in their blind spot, they overturn, oversteer, whatever. That big truck, if it hits like a tiny little sedan, somebody might not make it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we've
Like
seen
it's more
videos.
life or death than any.
Yeah, like we've
Like it's
seen
real.
videos where those big trucks like make a mistake, slide on some ice, and take out multiple people, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't just kill themselves. They could wipe out like a good chunk of 95.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When they mess up, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? So it's like you're more accountable,
Mm-hmm.
but you also could become more arrogant if you don't stay grounded and check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing is alluding to how do you decipher between an enemy
Mm-hmm.
and an actual like caring friend?
Yeah.
And when I say friend, it can mean anybody. It doesn't have to mean like in the terms of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But just like friendly, it's coming from a place of love,
Yeah.
opposed to like someone actually hating. Like, man, this man got a vision. Let me throw some salt on it, right?
Yeah. Nah, I mean, all valid points. I think so. It's tough, right?
For
So
sure.
I think one of the challenges, because in the article I mentioned, I thought my mom was an enemy when she tried to point out some of my blind spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was, the reason why it was hard for me to see her as someone, first, accountability on my end, not knowing yourself makes you unaware of your blind spots, right? So you don't realize like that, okay, this is a blind spot, you know what I'm saying, for me? Because, I mean, it's easy to say in a car, like, okay, hey, yo, there's a car right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like in real life, it's hard to say, hey, this is a blind spot for you because you can't physically see it, right? So the first thing was not really being fully self-aware. That's the first. The second was, I think I had, because I knew my mom, I didn't feel like my mom's intentions, even though I knew it was out of love, but I still felt like her motives were a little bit
not pure.
impure, because at the end of the day, me, especially like, for example, like me leaving my job, right? At that time, I was helping out my mom doing like a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like she could always rely on me for bread.
Mm-hmm.
So like in my mind, anything she said, in the back of my mind, it was like, is she saying this because she out of love,
benefited
or
from
she's
it.
trying to prevent me from, making a mistake or whatever?
Yeah.
Or she's saying this because she's
Because the
considering
benefits was
herself.
hitting.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, is this a selfish
Mm-hmm.
thing, or this like a selfless, like, Nate, I'm trying to expose you to something that you're not seeing.
For
So
sure.
I think that was one of the things, right? It's hard to sometimes take advice or receive criticism from people who you feel like have something to gain or lose by your decision.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like even like it's crazy, bro. Like I was watching like it's crazy. I was watching Moesha, right?
Yeah.
And Frank, the dad, he trying to buy a dealership because he's a car salesman, and he's trying to buy a dealership or whatever. And what they thought they were going to pay for the dealership, they ended up getting a bidding war, and they had to pay each person. The partners had to come up with extra $75,000, right?
Okay.
So he told D like, "Oh, okay, like I cashed out our retirement. Can I borrow?" Actually, like to borrow her savings, to borrow like from their college fund that they have for the kids, all types of stuff. And she just like, whoa, like, yo, like you try tripping, like you made this decision without me. He's like,
definitely tripping.
He's like, yo, like you don't believe in me, Like they get into that.
Yeah, he got defensive.
Yeah, they get into that. I'm just like, wow, like it's kind of crazy. And then it reminded me of some other video I had watched. I know this is not your favorite person, but Steve Harvey. This this guy, right? He had quit his job. He had a wife and kids. Quit his job, started a business, took like $30K out of their retirement, and he lost everything. And his vision was so big, financial freedom, all that type of stuff.
For sure.
And the woman, like a therapist, she said, you thought I can't remember what she said, but exact words. But eventually she said, you thought you said you wanted to provide for your family. That's why you took for this risk, right? And he was like, yes. She was like, but in reality, what you did was you robbed and you stole from the family. Okay. I was like, damn.
Damn, she spanked his ass.
Bruh, I could see it in his eyes. Bruh, it spanked me, bruh.
That's painful.
You could tell him in his eye. He was just like, yep. Like he had to eat that, bruh. And it was real. Like, but yeah, I think those are the two things. Not being fully self-aware, and then of course, kind of not wanting to accept criticism from people who are close to you because you feel like they have something to gain or lose from your decisions.
Now, how do you make that switch, or how do you determine if it is coming from a genuine place or not, or you really don't till later on? Because it clearly took you some time before you was like, oh snap, like you meant good this entire time. My bad, I was tripping, right? But sometimes you don't have that long stretch of patience to wait. If you got to make a decision and you have a time frame on that decision, like most decisions have, right? You can't take the 3 months that you were able to take, or however long your grace period to come to like, I'm actually considering what you told me because I've came to the conclusion that you're not the enemy.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just self-awareness. I think that's the only way, to be honest. Getting knowledge of yourself and your blind spots, period. I think that's the only way. Because if you know your blind spots and someone says something, you're like, oh, okay, that's in relation to my blind spots. You know what I mean? And specifically as a visionary, right? Like now that I'm aware that I overlook small but important details, if someone points out a small detail, I'm not going to just brush it to the side because it's like, okay, that's small, but okay, let me dig into that. Is that important? Is that something I need to be vigilant of and pay attention to? Because the thing is, like I said in the article, like I thought, I'm this visionary. I thought my mom had, because she was calling out small but important things, I thought it was out of a scarcity mindset. I'm like, yo, you ain't got the vision.
You against me.
Yeah, you don't have the vision. You don't have the vision that I see. Like, oh, yeah, you got the scarcity mindset. So I'm not, this blind spot you're poking out is not important because it's coming from a place of scarcity, not a place of love and, you know what I'm saying, honesty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that. Self-awareness. And What was the other one?
Um,
Being knowledgeable of your natural blind spots will save you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that pretty much sums it up, cuz.
All right.
That's
Any
crazy.
closing words?
Yeah. So you said something in the final paragraph that I thought was really cool. Was basically, the world admires the visionaries, but the people who often get overlooked are those voices of reason who help us, make these decisions, push through our hard times, and especially see our blind spots and the little things that we might miss along the road. Because it's easy to get so caught up in what you're on the verge of delivering or what you plan to deliver that you can miss a lot, right? That happens to me a lot of times where I know I get caught up and you'll catch some small stuff. And I'm just like, man, like that's small and unimportant. Like F it. But it makes sense in the long run to handle those things also. So yeah, I guess my closing remark is just, stay sharp and pay attention to everything. Right? Especially the small things. Because like you said, a small holes sink big ships, and you don't want to build nothing that's really great, and then you find out that you overlooked a little piece of advice or suggestion early on in your process that cost you everything you built.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's real.
And on you.
Or go ahead.
Oh no, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, and if you're not a person who's super detail oriented or have a great attention to detail, at least surround yourself with people who can be that voice of reason.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Definitely.
It's important. Like I just remember the last thing, like we're built in Africa, right? Remember I was like, yo, we should introduce French videos into, the platform.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like I seen it. I was like, okay, this is going to be all great. And then you kind of broke down all the things that like I wasn't seeing. Like, yo, Nate, okay, if we introduce French videos into the platform, people are going to want to get interviewed in French. And I'm like, we don't have nobody who speaks French on the team.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was like, you said that. I was like, wow, okay. I completely overlooked that. Like completely.
Yeah.
That had not come to my mind at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think just be willing to listen to people and have people around you.
Yeah.
When you're making decisions.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And then one thing also that I think kind of plays off of that last thing is that sometimes you just need somebody who's outside of what you're doing to get their opinion also. Because there's little things that people usually bring up that don't make sense. Like, for example, like for like work, like I do like UX or whatever. And one time, the last product we built, we brought in for our testing, we had somebody from HR. And it's tech. You know what I'm saying? You would think, like, what does somebody from HR know about, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff that's going on, right? Everything like, oh, it works, it looks nice. And they brought up, like, a good point on, like, accessibility. Like, you feel me? Like, your color contrast ain't hitting like it should. And it's like, you know what? That's true. We didn't think about those little accessibility pieces. So sometimes you just need just an outside opinion of somebody who's not connected to what you're building. Because it might not be like a small detail that they catch, but they can make a comment that will make you rethink, like, okay, there's probably a better way to present this, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We had 39 minutes, and you know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody for hopping on today, for listening. If you stayed through, salute to you. If you haven't already, tap in the website, check out the article. It's pretty short and sweet, concise, straight to the point. Stay safe, take care of your family, take care of your chickens. And yeah, stay alive. BYLU Campaign. We out.